Christmas Stories from Grandma's Attic by Arletta Richardson. Cranberries and Popcorn. There is something comforting about the traditions of Christmas. Every year we are ready for carols, candles, bells, angels, and mistletoe. The tree decorations look new when they are unwrapped, even though some of them have been chewed on by 3 generations of babies. We enjoy the same old stories, too. Just let someone say, "Marley was dead to begin with." There was no doubt whatever about that. And there is no doubt that Charles Dickens is among us. Or here, "And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus." And we know that Luke is going to tell us the greatest story of all. The human mind has a remarkable ability, both gratifying and horrifying, to relive a scene from years gone by, complete with sight, sound, and smell. Almost anyone you ask can come up with a story about a special Christmas. See how your mind zeroes in on the year you got a sled and there was no snow on Christmas Day? Or the year the tree tipped over? Or the year you didn't have a tree? The Christmas stories in this book span the years from my grandmother's, Mabel Odell Williams of the Grandma's Attic series, childhood to my own childhood. They cover the years when there was little material wealth with which to celebrate and the years when money was plentiful. But each story reflects a spirit that has nothing to do with poverty or plenty, and everything to do with love, joy, goodwill, and thankfulness. It is my hope that reading these stories will inspire you to go back and remember the cranberries and popcorn on your own string of memories. Merry Christmas. "These ornaments always look new when we take them out, don't they, Grandma?" I said. "I forget what they look like every year." "Yes, they do," Grandma replied, "and some of them are older than you are." We unwrapped the balls and celluloid animals and dolls and spread them out around the tree. "This is my favorite," I said, picking up a little angel. "It is pretty old, isn't it?" "Yes, it is." Grandma turned it over in her hand. "But it looks a lot better than another angel I remember." "I wish I had saved it, even though you'd never know what it was, I'm afraid." "What happened to it?" I asked. "Did you drop it?" "Not exactly," Grandma said. "It was the victim of another one of our foolish tricks." I was anxious to hear about it, so Grandma told me the story while we worked. After what seemed like weeks of waiting, it was finally time to decorate the tree at school. Each class made something to hang, and there was a lot of competition for the prettiest or most unusual addition each year. This Christmas, Miss Gibson had a surprise as her contribution to the festivities. She brought a box out of her desk. "We are going to have an angel at the top of our tree," she announced, and she held up the most gorgeous ornament we had ever seen. "My aunt sent it for us to use, then I'll take it home with me." She placed it with things we had made with the promise that we would start trimming the tree the first thing tomorrow. Everyone gathered around to admire the angel with its golden wings and halo, white, frothy-looking dress, and outstretched arms. "I can almost hear her singing, 'Glory to God in the highest,' can't you?" Sarah Jane said. "That's the first thing everyone will see when they come for the program." When we returned to our seats for the final minutes of the school day, Sarah Jane leaned over and whispered to me, "I have a great idea." "You always have," I whispered back. "I hope it doesn't have anything to do with me." Miss Gibson assigned homework and dismissed the school. While we gathered up our books and put on boots and scarves, Sarah Jane revealed her plan. "I don't think the angel should stay here in this cold building tonight," she said. "What if she freezes and cracks? Maybe we'd better take her home and keep her warm. We can come early in the morning before the others get here. Shall we ask Miss Gibson if we can do that?" I agreed that this sounded like a good idea. We looked around for Miss Gibson, but she had been called out to settle a dispute in the schoolyard. "I don't think she'll care," Sarah Jane said. "Here, I have a clean handkerchief to wrap the angel, and you can carry her in your lunch pail." Something told me that we should wait and tell Miss Gibson, but she didn't return, so we packed the angel into the lunch pail and headed for home. I had been given permission to stop at Sarah Jane's to play after school, so we went straight to the Clark's house. "I'm glad you're home, girls," Mrs. Clark said. "It's getting colder. Mabel, your folks stopped by on the way to town and said that you should stay here until they get back. It may be after dark, so you'll have supper with us." This was a pleasant surprise, and we hurried to take off our coats and run to Sarah Jane's room. We worked a few minutes on our homework, then played with her dolls until it was time to eat. Soon after supper, Pa and Ma arrived, and while they visited with the Clarks, I got my things together to go home. "Where's my lunch pail?" I asked. "I put it on the back of the stove," Mrs. Clark replied. "I thought we'd be sure to see it there when you were ready to head for home." Sarah Jane and I looked at each other in horror, and as quickly as we could escape from the kitchen, we opened the pail. The sight that met our eyes was worse than we had imagined. The angel's face was crumpled, and her halo had melted to one side. Her arms were no longer outstretched, but lay at odd angles to her body. "Oh," I wailed, "this is the worst thing we've ever done. I didn't know she was made all of wax." Sarah Jane looked as stricken as I felt as we gazed at the ruined ornament. "What do we do now?" she moaned. "Could we put it back and pretend we don't know what happened? No one saw us leave with it." I shook my head. "We'd never sleep again as long as we lived," I said. "We'll have to tell our folks." "And Miss Gibson," Sarah Jane added. She sat down on the bed. "I thought Christmas was supposed to be happy." "This one sure won't be." "We'll probably have to give up our presents to pay for it," I said. "This will be absolutely the worst Christmas we've ever had." "Oh my," Mrs. Clark said when we broke the news to our folks. "I should have looked in that dinner pail before I put it on the stove. I had no idea there was anything like that in it." "I can't believe you'd do something so foolish," Ma said. "Or maybe I can. What are you going to do now?" "We thought you'd tell us," I said. "We don't know." "This is your problem," Pa told us. "You will need to talk to Miss Gibson about it. Find out how much it will cost to replace the angel, then decide how you will get the money." "There's no way but to give up our Christmas presents," Sarah Jane said. Mr. Clark nodded. "That sounds reasonable," he said. "It's a sorry fact that you pay for foolish mistakes." "If we expected any sympathy, we can forget it," Sarah Jane said when we were back in her room. "I expected something besides sympathy," I replied. "I'm surprised they didn't spank us, even if we are 10 years old." "I'd rather be spanked than have to face Miss Gibson in the morning," Sarah Jane declared. "She is going to be so unhappy. We've ruined 3 Christmases." We were in for another surprise the following morning when Miss Gibson looked thoughtfully at the ruined angel. "I'm sure you meant well, girls, but we must learn to think things through before we act." "How much do we owe you, Miss Gibson? Can you buy another angel for our tree?" Miss Gibson was silent for a moment, then she shook her head. "We'll put this angel on the tree," she said. "It isn't as beautiful as it was, but maybe it will remind us that we can ruin anything if we don't consider the consequences of our actions." Perhaps we needed the lesson that things that can be broken are not as important as the love that came at Christmas time. She smiled and hugged us. "We'll tell the others that the angel had an accident, but she still stands for Christmas." In the dim light, the angel still looked pretty, Grandma said. But what we remembered most was Miss Gibson's wisdom in not putting too much value on things that could be replaced. We may not have been punished as severely as we should have been, but we did learn a good lesson.